All right, Van, we're getting ready to go. Stand by, okay? Stand by.
The truth.
When you put cameras right in our face, like, we really don't know what to say. Oh, I'm supposed to say something? I ain't got nothing to say.
Don't talk to me today.
Be smart what you say.
You want me to say something?
I got the mic there.
I got nothing funny to say.
I don't either.
I'm not Brett Favre.
Sorry to let them down.
Yeah.
Let's go, guys. It's a game. It's a game out here I want to play in. Someday with experience, we'll have something funny to say.
Pull out your recorders and hide your children's eyes. You're about to enter the afternoon locker room.
This is the Express version, so all aboard the ALR Express, driven by Sowers Ford of Michigan City, as we come to you live from Michigan City, Indiana, where we have Marquette Catholic Volleyball coming in 2 hours from now. Our pregame will begin at 6:45 Central Time. Brian Snow here at the Shoal Student Center as you hear the music getting cranked up. And speaking of cranked up, there's a lot more stuff that's being cranked up, and I got my buddy Alvin Washington on the line who sat in for me this morning for Snowman in the Morning. And Vin, what do you have for me?
First of all, hello!
What you,
gracious alive, bruh.
what you got for me, partner? Talk to me.
As I talk to you from the other home office here in Mason City, Iowa.
Yes.
Just this afternoon, like literally about almost an hour ago, Keith Olbermann of ESPN was talking about the independent investigation that has now been initiated by the NFL to look into, as I mentioned this morning, an AP report mentioning a unnamed law enforcement official in New Jersey that has a 12-second voicemail that indicates that the National Football League had the second tape of the Ray Rice domestic violence incident at a now-closed casino at the same time that the first tape came out, and this was in April 9th, to be exact. Well, the independent investigator's name is Rob Miller. According to Keith Olbermann, now this is all coming from Keith Olbermann.
And Keith Olbermann is very reliable.
According to Keith Olbermann of ESPN, former FBI Director Bob Miller works at a law firm that represents DirecTV. And, believe it or not, the Baltimore Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti.
What?
Yeah. So it's basically, it gets better. It gets better.
There's more.
There are two NFL owners overseeing said independent investigation.
Ay.
Do the last names Mara and Rooney ring a bell?
Oh, my, you got to be kidding me.
Yes, this was commentated on just now by Keith Olbermann of ESPN. It was originally reported this morning by Dan Graziano of ESPN.com. The two I'm speaking of are New York Giants owner John Mara. You remember his father, Wellington.
Yes.
Pittsburgh Steelers owner Art Rooney is also going to oversee said investigation.
Oh, goodness.
Now, joint statement put out by both Mara and Rooney at the outset of this said investigation.
All right.
And let's see, who was the one that was? Well, this is both of them. This is the entire statement. Commissioner Roger Goodell called on us Wednesday evening and requested that we oversee the independent investigation that will be conducted by former FBI Director Bob Miller III. Our role is not to conduct or direct the investigation, but to support Mr. Miller and assist him in gaining whatever access or resources he needs. At the conclusion of Mr. Miller's investigation, we will receive his findings on behalf of the league's owners. I'm going to stop right there because it is interesting to note once again, Bob Miller is now part of a law firm that represents two particular interests that are tied to the NFL. One of them being DirecTV, the other one being Baltimore Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti.
Ay.
Very interesting work done by Keith Olbermann, I must say.
I listened to the rant that you directed me to. Oh, my gracious, did he go off.
Okay, now continuing said statement from Mara and Rooney. Quote, we have spoken with Mr. Miller today on Thursday, and he has informed us that he is prepared to begin immediately. No timeline was established, and we stressed that he should take as much time as necessary to complete a thorough investigation. We agree that the scope of the investigation should be aimed at getting answers to specific questions, including what efforts were made by league staff to obtain the video of what took place inside the elevator and to determine whether, in fact, the video was ever delivered to someone at the league office, and if so, what happened to said video after it was delivered.
Wow.
I'll jump to the very last line. Our sole motive here is to get the truth and then share Mr. Miller's findings with the public. Again, that is a joint statement from New York Giants owner John Mara and Pittsburgh Steelers owner Art Rooney, who have been designated by Commissioner Roger Goodell to oversee this independent investigation by former FBI Director Robert Miller, and you understand the connections that I just made. Here is the interesting thing that comes up in all of this. If it takes an independent investigation to figure out what a 12-second voicemail probably can tell you better than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the owners are standing firm behind Roger Goodell. As a matter of fact, I saw earlier today on Facebook, there was a statement by the McCaskey family that owns the Bears that indicated, A, that they welcome the independent investigation, but also, B, that they stand firmly behind Roger Goodell. You don't suppose that maybe, just maybe, if the sponsors bark loud enough and somebody's head on Park Avenue in New York will start rolling?
That's something you mentioned this morning during the Express version of SITM, and I thank you for mentioning it. What I'm going to play right now is a clip that you directed me to, and once again, this is courtesy of Keith Olbermann and ESPN giving his thoughts, saying everyone must go.
Attorney's Office, the Baltimore Ravens, the National Football League, and Commissioner Roger Goodell have conducted a cover-up of Ray Rice's brutal assault on his then-fiancée on February 15th. There is no other conclusion possible. Each body, each leading individual involved came to a judicial conclusion about what had happened to Janae Palmer and what should happen to Ray Rice, and each, through deception or incompetence, misled the public, damaged the efforts of every man and every woman in this country seeking to merely slow down the murderous epidemic of domestic violence, and made a mockery of the process by which those who batter those they claim to love are to be brought to justice. And not one of them, not Commissioner Goodell, not NFL Senior Vice President Adolfo Birch, not NFL Chief Counsel Jeff Pash, not Baltimore Team President Richard Cass, not Baltimore General Manager Ozzie Newsome, not Assistant Prosecutor Diane Ruberton of Atlantic County, New Jersey, not Prosecutor Jim McClain, not Superior Court Judge Michael Doino, not Ray Rice himself. No matter what actions were taken today against Rice, nor what might be taken in the future, none of them have any remaining credibility, and each must leave or be expelled from their current positions. And despite the obsession of the moment, it does not truly matter whether they had seen this video before today. The league, the team, the prosecutors either whitewashed Ray Rice's brutal assault without ever having seen this video, or they saw the video and whitewashed Rice's brutal assault anyway. They accused prosecutors McClain and Ruberton and Judge Donio, even with the full weight of the law behind them, of failing to seek or failing to obtain or failing to act upon that in-elevator video, of failing to put Ray Rice in jail where he belongs. The state of New Jersey must immediately begin an inquiry into whether or not the failures of McClain and Ruberton and Donio are mere incompetence or if they rose to the level of criminal malfeasance. I accuse President Cass and General Manager Newsome of Baltimore of failing to act internally after the ludicrousness of the Rice two-game suspension should have become apparent even to them. They have had 6 weeks to add a team suspension to Rice's token league punishment, to try to make the scales of justice slightly less out of all balance. They did nothing until they terminated Rice's contract today, after all of them failed to get away with it. Mr. Cass and Mr. Newsome put the meaninglessness of their own team's financial and on-field success ahead of the safety and well-being not only of Janae Palmer, but of every woman in this country now threatened by a man who, because of how they covered for Ray Rice, was a little more confident that he can get away with it. I accuse Roger Goodell of conducting a kangaroo court by interviewing Janae Palmer Rice with Ray Rice present, in contradiction of all recommended practices when dealing with victims of domestic abuse, thus virtually guaranteeing that whatever testimony she gave them of the events of February 15th, they had the validity of a video made by a hostage with a gun to her head. Putting Janae Palmer Rice in a position to plead for her husband's career, perhaps at the risk of being beaten again if she failed, that Roger Goodell did. Seek and act upon the videotape that should have sent Rice to jail without bail, that he did not do. Commissioner Goodell, as I first said on this program on August 1st, must resign. If he will not do so, NFL owners must fire him, and fire Senior Vice President Birch and Chief Counsel Pash. Pash, of all people, should have known better than to put the victim on trial and to acquit without all the evidence. Mr. Goodell's ineptitude has not merely rendered this football season meaningless and irrelevant. By contrast, it has not only reduced supporting or watching NFL football to a distasteful, even a disrespectful act, but most importantly, it has comforted the violent and afflicted the victim. His push to increase NFL punishment of domestic abusers to roughly 1/3 that of repeat pot smokers, his decision today to suspend Rice indefinitely after the Ravens had fired him, are elements of classic tragedy, wherein the right thing is finally done only after it is too late to matter. Roger Goodell's existence, who he is, what he has turned the NFL Commissioner's office into, is now symbolized by Ray Rice's brutal left hand striking Janae Palmer and striking her again. Mr. Goodell is an enabler of men who beat women. His position within the National Football League is no longer tenable. And I accuse Ray Rice of a brutal and potentially deadly assault, followed not by admission and contrition, but by a pious, self-serving, insincere, cynical, devious, manipulative, unapologetic performance to protect his job and his money at the expense of the truth, at the expense of the public, at the expense of the next woman he brutalizes. He has already had his second chance. This new video shows he had already squandered it. Ray Rice must never be allowed back in a National Football League uniform. And lastly, I accuse us, all of us, executives, players, fans, reporters, of failing to draw a line in the sand when one was needed most. Any games played by Baltimore without its executives and the commissioner having been dismissed and without Ray Rice being permanently banned by the National Football League must be fully boycotted by all of us.
Wow. Wow.
Those are some very strong words, but here is where I philosophically disagree with Keith Olbermann. And as much as I respect him and as much as he's on the money with just about almost all of this, if Ray Rice is to be banished because of this, then Cooper Riley's actions last year should also get him equally banned.
And I'll add this. If Ray McDonald is found guilty or indicted or whatever the situation is and it comes to the same thing, then he must also get the same treatment.
And let's add Greg Hardy of the Carolina Panthers, who has been found by a judge guilty of threatening his girlfriend. He should also get the same banishment.
And it needs to come quickly. It needs to come quickly. If this is, granted, this is not swift. We're talking about a spread of 5 months. But at the same time, when you're talking about handing a judgment down as quickly as it handed down and everything that's followed since then, if the judgment against Ray Rice is so swift, then Ray McDonald, Riley Cooper, and Greg Hardy should get the same swift treatment. Given due diligence on all three cases, giving the findings, and given the fact, especially in Hardy's case, that he was found guilty of this. He needs and deserves to get the same kind of punishment that Ray Rice is getting.
Yeah, either the exact same banishment or you reduce Ray Rice's punishment to the original 2-game suspension. The original 2-game suspension that you gave him, you put him back on the roster. It's either all or nothing.
And in this case, all needs to be the way that they go. If you're going to have harsh penalties in place, you have to stick to them. Just like my partner said a moment ago, folks, you have to stick to them. You can't allow one player to have a case pending, or two in this case, McDonald and Hardy, and allow them to play. And the situation that Riley Cooper had last year with the obvious and the documented slander that he said, and I will not repeat what he said, go basically unpunished. It's not right.
Not only that, but let's take it all the way back to when Ben Roethlisberger was accused of sexual. If these three gentlemen, and again, Ray Rice, already out of the league and definitely suspended. Ray McDonald should get the same thing. Greg Hardy should get the same thing. And doggone it, Ben Roethlisberger with a pedophilic sexual assault charge against him should also get the same thing.
You know who should have gotten this, and you know the measures that should have been put in place well before this, and it would have ruffled a lot of feathers? But if the NFL is supposed to be the strongest of the 4 major leagues, you know who should have gotten a punishment like this and not cared if it ruffled any feathers? His name is Brett Favre.
Yep. And that tells you right then and there, without me even having to say anything, where all of this seems to lie at. Mm-hmm. I'll throw in another thing that came down today.
Talk to me.
There is a bipartisan group of 16, not 16, let me take that back, 12, a bipartisan group of 12 female senators, Republicans and Democrats, that have sent a letter to Commissioner Goodell to institute a policy of zero tolerance for domestic violence.
Then why wasn't that policy instituted in the first place? Why did it have to take such an extreme measure from something that came 5 months after the fact? 5 months after the fact. Why wasn't the zero tolerance policy? And this is the question I wanted to send you this morning when you were sitting in for me. Why wasn't a zero tolerance policy instituted right then and there?
You know, I really wish I had an answer for you on that one. But here's the tangent that I want to go with that, because I know there is a backlash from a lot of the women who follow the NFL nowadays, and it's a big number. I mean, it's a really big number. And the irony of the all, and Keith Olbermann again alluded to this just this afternoon, that even as late as today, there was a ladies' cut Ray Rice jersey, all black with white numbers and purple trim, still on the NFL.com website.
Oh, wow.
Alrighty then. Now, having said that here on the Afternoon Locker Room, if these senators want a zero tolerance mandate on domestic violence in the NFL, I want them to equally do the same thing, not just for the other 3 major pro leagues here in the country. Let's also do one for the WNBA.
Yes.
I mentioned the Shamika Holtz clause situation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do one for the WUSA. All right?
Right. Everything needs to have that. Every professional sports league in this country, outside of the Big Four, as well as inside of the Big Four, needs to have a zero tolerance policy, period. If you can do it for drug use, if you can do it for alcohol, you can definitely and must definitely do it for this.
And the reason I say that is, remember when Brittany Griner knocked a ham biscuit out of old girl in college and got suspended for it?
Yes.
Okay, Brittany Griner is about to get married.
Uh-huh.
All right? This is about to be, I guess you could, in some states a civil union, in other states a marriage, however you want to put it into the mix.
Yeah, however you want to call it.
You know, Brittany Griner is about to get hitched. And she's getting ready to get hitched to another WNBA player.
Yeah.
God forbid.
And we talked about this before, folks.
God forbid Brittany Griner's emotions get the best of her in a situation between her and her significant other where she swings on her. All right? What does the WNBA have now? All right?
Yeah. And the WNBA doesn't necessarily
Remember I told you about Mike?
The WNBA doesn't necessarily have a clean slate either. There's a certain fight involving one Candace Parker that comes to mind. So they don't necessarily have a clean slate. We already know about the Malice in the Palace from 2004 with the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons. Those are just plain fights. We're talking domestic violence as well. If there's a zero tolerance policy in place, then it needs to be in place across the board.
You know, and we haven't even touched on the women swinging on the men. Now, I understand the prevailing thought that men supposedly are naturally stronger.
Yeah.
You can only know the strength if he got it between the 2 ears. And I know a lot of men.
Yeah.
By the simple fact of being brought up, you're not supposed to hit women no matter what. and you see these images of women literally attacking men unprovocated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about those men? Are we just gonna let them be punked out just cause? I mean, seriously.
And the number grows. And the number, here's the thing, the number continues to grow, and no one says anything about it.
All right. I can't even begin to tell you the number of men who are now 6 feet under.
Oh, yeah.
Because of such a situation. And the way the women get away with it, not all of them, but the way a number of those women get away with it, all they have to say is either he raped me or he hit me, without any evidence proving such.
And no investigation to find any evidence to prove such.
You know, and this is what makes me mad sometimes with our justice system, is to say, are you just going to punk out like that? Really? Now, not excusing anything that Ray Rice did whatsoever.
None. No.
The tape clearly shows from the hallway to the elevator, everything was provoked by Ray Rice.
Yes.
That is established. I got that. That is, I have no problem saying that Ray Rice deserves to be out of the league a very long time.
And that part has been proven. So we said it, and we've said it all week. We do not condone and never will condone violence against women. We will never, ever condone that. And something that I will echo from Stephen A., that cost him a week and basically ultimately cost Ted Robinson, the voice of the 49ers, 2 games. Nobody should put their hands on each other. And it's especially true when saying a man should not put his hands on a woman. He should not, he should not, he should not. That's what Pops taught me. That's what Grandpapa taught me. That's what I'm teaching my nephew. Okay? Men, do not put your hands on a woman. Period. End of story. Zero tolerance. End of story. But there is a flip side to that coin. And people, men and women, need to hear that flip side.
You know, if you're provoked to the point, I mean, men, all the men that are listening right now, just because you have been taught, you have been led by others as to not initiate contact against a woman. Notice what I just said here. Initiate.
Keyword.
Of any means. If it gets to the point where you have to defend yourself against an unprovoked attack by a woman, no matter who it is, you got to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
You have to defend yourself. Seriously. And there's no two ways about it. You know, I commend Whoopi Goldberg for calling out the Solange Jay-Z situation for what it was. Jay-Z was in the elevator chilling. And Solange just out of nowhere just started attacking him.
Yeah.
Clearly shows that. Where are the women on that? Or
hiding.
Are they chuckling in the background saying?
They're chuckling. It could be the fact that they're hiding, and it could be the fact that they're chuckling in the background. And they're not going to come forward. They're not. They're not. The biggest reason I can think of that they're not going to come forward is because it's Jay-Z.
It's Jay-Z.
Simple as it gets.
You know, and whether you like Jay-Z or not, you know, men, put your son in that situation. What do you tell your son? What do you tell your nephew? You see, this is the flip side of the coin that no one wants to talk about because we've been so conditioned to believe that women as a whole aren't as strong as we are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the most part, that is true. But 6'7", Brittany Griner, no.
Not happening.
No, you're not gonna get me to believe that nonsense.
Or 6'5" Elena Deladon, if that ever happens, and I don't think it will. She's too sweet of a person for that to happen. I mentioned my nephew, and I must bring this up. My nephew's father is not in the picture, so the main person that he turned to was my dad, and that was before my dad passed away in 2007. Since then, my nephew has been turning to me until two women in my family, and I'm not afraid to expose this right now, shut me out because of something I believed in. And now I am no longer able to teach my nephew what is important and what is necessary. So men, when you have the chance to teach a male child in your family what is important and necessary and the difference between right and wrong, take advantage of all those opportunities. Because you never know when a family member, and I'm calling some family members out that do this to their children. I know I'm not the only one. I've spoken to quite a few people. I got a dear friend down in Austin, Texas, who's going through the same thing. She's being shut up by members of her family because they didn't follow the cookie-cutter method in life. Well, you know something? Life decides to deal you a couple of curveballs. You swing at those SOBs. So we did. And I'm getting back to the men. Men, when you have a chance to teach a nephew, a son, a grandson about what's right and wrong in life, especially when dealing with the opposite sex, you take every lesson seriously, and also you pay attention to details, because there are some details that they're going to pick up along the way that you thought you taught them, and they're going to turn out to be wrong. And now it's manifested itself in this Ray Rice situation that it's cost Ray Rice his career, it's cost him his endorsements, and it's cost him and his family a buttload of money.
Well, not only that, it's also cost Ray Rice probably a few other things that he may have wanted to do in the community as well. We're talking about one of the most, until this point, one of the most upstanding members of the NFL community. And in one 3.5-minute tape, it's been taken away from him. Now, here's the interesting thing. Going back to the original adjudicated case in Atlantic City, there was a portion of the case where Janae Rice actually stood up for her husband. And I find that interesting. I find it very interesting that she did that, because anybody else in that situation, they said deuces. What does that, and I don't want to throw shade on Janae Rice, but there had to have been another motive behind Janae Rice standing up for her husband the way she did in court and in front of Roger Goodell, that initiated the probation on Ray Rice, and of course B, the now infamous 2-game suspension by Roger Goodell. Something in what she said had to have initiated that type of thinking. Because yes, if there was a no-tolerance domestic violence mandate in place, Ray Rice is out of there before we even get to the Hall of Fame game.
Here's the thing. Here's what I'm wondering, and I'm still going to wonder this, and we're going to close with this question, and Vin and I are going to give our thoughts on it before we get out of here, as we're getting ready for volleyball in the next 90 minutes. Why did she still marry him? I don't know if we'll ever get an answer to that question. But why did she still stick with him, part A, and part B, marry him when he did this before they got married?
One of the telling statements that came out of that video that I think a lot of domestic violence advocates are indicative of the victims staying with their abuser despite everything, every red flag that pops up in front of them. She said, and I quote, after coming out of her, I guess, unconscious state, "Why did you do this to me? I am the mother of your child." If after saying that, something didn't click in her head to say, get the hell out.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a grown woman. All right? Now, I understand the psychology of abusers in this type of situation because they can use physical abuse and psychological abuse to make victims stay in such a relationship. I understand that.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is this is a well-tenured NFL player. Most women in this case would have gotten a lawsuit against him.
Yep.
Or if they were married to him, would have divorced him and gotten at least half of their earnings to at least ease some of this pain from it. I'm wondering if the impetus to marry him is not a part of what I just talked about.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. That, like you said, the impetus to marry him was part of it. And the back half of that is the impetus to marry him. What does that continue to bring in, ladies and gentlemen? Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. 100 yards. Money, 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 money. 1,000-yard season. Bonus. Money, 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 money. Roster bonus. He stays with the team. Baltimore gets to the playoffs. What is she counting? Money, 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 money. It's a doggone gravy train.
You know, a lot of these young athletes that are coming into the NFL now, especially the African-American athletes, and they come from environments almost similar to this. And even with the rookie symposium that goes into detail about dealing with women
yes,
who may want to ride that train, as it were. You know, these young men are coming in a bit confused because on the one hand, you're told you not to strike a woman. On the other hand, you're told, watch out for these women that come after you.
Yeah.
And then there's the one that actually is, I don't know, genuine. You feel she's the one. You know, there's a confusion somewhere in the midst of that is not being addressed by the league.
Yeah, it sure is.
No, doggone well is sure not being addressed at home.
No, it's not. And it never will be addressed at home. Not in the bold way that it needs to be addressed.
You know, and as the Ravens and the Steelers are set to go, one assaulter is still playing. The other won't even see the light of day for a long time. I'm just saying.
And it should frighten the rest of the major leagues unless they take a stand. Let me use an example before we quickly get out of here that you talked about this morning. How swift did the hand of justice come down on Donald Sterling as opposed to how it came down against Ray Rice? Something you talked about this morning, Vin.
Well, the interesting thing about it was you're talking about a racial component as opposed to a gender component. And even though they carry the same type of vitriol, it's two totally different animals. What was interesting to note about the Sterling situation was the fact that it was the players a little bit later on in that revelation that said, and of course led by LeBron James, said, if this person is still owning this team, then this entire league of players, in the NBA, as we well know, is over 3/4 African American.
Yeah, 80% of the players in the NBA are African American.
If he was still the owner of the Clippers, knowing what we know about Donald Sterling, then most of those frontline, headline superstar players were going to boycott the season.
Yes.
Yeah. And the reason the NBA stepped in as quickly as they did was because, again, the players are the product.
And it makes you wonder why the players didn't step in this case of the NFL. We'll leave it there, and I will take this on in the morning. And, Ben, I'm hoping you join me because we'll pick it up there tomorrow morning. We got to get out of here. We got volleyball in about an hour, 15 minutes, and we got to get ready for that. So we hope that you enjoyed this express edition of the Afternoon Locker Room. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Snowman in the morning, and we got a whole bunch of stuff to get to, and it may run over again. Thanks for listening. God bless to this express edition of the Afternoon Locker Room. Again, we thank you for listening. God bless. We're driven by Sowers Ford. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Snowman in the Morning. Remember to make your next move your best move. So long, everybody.